Hi everybody, Jennifer Blevins-Smith with Integral Clinic Solutions, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Navigating the Business of Medicine. Today I'm going to continue our workflows discussion and talk about why standardizing patient registration is so important in your practice and how it actually can affect your cash flow if it's not done correctly or consistently. Patient registration is exactly where the revenue cycle starts. The information that is entered in the system when registering a patient will directly affect your claims that are being sent out. How that is because the name spelling has to be correct. The name entered has to be correct. Addresses, phone numbers, gender, insurance information. That all has to be correct and accurate and match what's at the insurance company in order for the claims to match up in the insurance system with a patient in order for it to process and get paid. A lot of times people don't understand that the revenue cycle actually starts at the front desk with patient registration, so they don't spend as much time on training or ensuring that their staff at the front desk or whomever is registering the patients is doing it correctly, and that there is a quality control aspect, making sure that what was entered is accurate moving forward and doesn't need to be changed or altered or anything like that. If you're using an electronic health record system and it correlates or interfaces with a clearinghouse, some of these things can be caught before they get sent to the insurance company, and sometimes they can't. And if you don't have that interface, then they won't be. You need to have internal QC processes ensuring that the person who registered the patient over the phone or in person is making sure that they're entering everything correctly and all the information that is needed or required is collected at that time. And then you need to make sure that somebody in your office, whether it's a billing person who's scrubbing claims or the person checking in the patient at the front desk at the time of service, is double checking all of that information, making sure that it's accurate and clean. There are some things in some of these practice management systems that allows you to quick register a patient. Now, there are appropriate times to quick register a patient, and if you ask your EHR system or the person training you or administrator what that is in their eyes, like why they created it and why that has a purpose in their system, then you can determine if you want to use that aspect or if you don't. In my opinion, quick registration has very few uses, and if you allow your staff to be able to do that, unfortunately, they will utilize it more than you want them to or tell them they're allowed to, and it can cause a lot of issues and snowball down that whole revenue cycle path. Quick registration often doesn't allow for them to enter insurance information right away or enter their ethnicity and race, which are some of the macro MIPS requirements. I mean, there's certain things that it dismisses because of the purpose that it was created, and it would take longer. So you definitely need to make sure that you, one, let them know if it's appropriate or not in your practice, and if you can just have it disabled if possible for your EHR. If you don't want them to use it, I would do that. Two, I would let them know if you do keep it, when it is appropriate, and why you don't want them using it, because putting a why behind things is always important. And three, I would explain to them what you do expect in the initial registration. So you do need to let them know that you expect them to be asking for clarification in spelling of names and not assuming. Even if it's a common name, there are some uncommon spellings. So they should be verifying that with patients. Dates of birth, they should be repeating those back after they type them in to make sure they heard correctly or their fingers did correctly, and reading exactly what they typed in versus what they think they heard. Because sometimes what we hear and what we type in can be different, and what's typed in is actually what's going to affect the claim from processing. So you need to explain to them they need to be reading back what's actually entered in the system, not what they think they should be repeating back. And there is a big difference, and once you train them and they understand that, usually they'll be very good about it, but people don't even think about that until you point it out. You need to make sure you let them know what information is expected to be collected at registration. So you want their full address. Now, they might have a PO box. In my suggestion and best practice, if they have a PO box, there should be a place in the system to add their physical address. That does not mean it will have anything mailed to it, but you do need it on file. So do you need to train your staff if a patient provides a PO box that you want them to collect the physical address? The reason for this is for collections. We don't like to be negative, but it's the reality of owning a business that if you have to send someone to collections, they will need that physical address. So you need to have it somewhere in your system. If there isn't anywhere designated for a physical address, then you need to find a place that would be best to enter it and let all your staff know where they need to put it. You need to make sure they collect their phone numbers, the best way to reach them. If your system allows for text messages, then you need to make sure you're asking specifically for cell phones and if it's okay to send text messages. Do you have a patient portal where they need an email address? Maybe that's going to be required. Are you going to require them to enter their insurance information, which I suggest doing that and collecting it ahead of time so you can check eligibility and benefits. When you're checking eligibility and benefits, if it wasn't entered correctly, then your system is going to either let you know if it does auto checks, or when you go into a patient portal and put in that information, if they can't find the patient, then there might have been an error in entry. That's a QC. Do you want them to collect their pharmacy ahead of time, in which their preferred, most common pharmacy that they would use? There's all these things that you need to think about because this workflow is going to affect how this patient is going to be basically having an experience in your practice moving forward. Are you going to have them collect information that helps with the billing, that helps with the back office? You know, those are the things that need to be thought about. Planning that whole process based on the patient's experience from the beginning of when they call to register through coming in and seeing the provider and then being checked out. Got to think about that whole process and what will affect and what will help from the beginning if you get it ahead of time. Now, when they check in is a really good time for the staff member checking them in. It might be the same person that registered them, or it might be a different person, to make sure that they actually physically have that photo ID in hand to compare the spellings and the addresses and everything to what's been entered in the system, and literally holding it up to the screen and looking at it and comparing it. Same with the insurance card, looking at and making sure the ID numbers are there, the group numbers, the subscriber is correct. You want to make sure that they're doing the same thing the same way every time, no matter what the process or the procedure is. So if you need them to always make sure they're checking IDs and insurances every time a patient comes in, whether they're a new patient or an established patient, then you want to make sure. If they do it the same way every time, it's going to get them in very good habits, and they're going to be less likely to make errors and less likely to miss things that have been entered incorrectly or missed. I always tell my staff to have a process and do it the same way every time for the same situation, and that repetition is going to just make it as efficient and error-free as possible. Now, if they misspell a name, they miss a middle initial that's on the insurance card and not in the system. If they put an F instead of an S as in Sam, if they type the wrong digit in a date of birth, if they miss a digit or transpose digits in the subscriber ID number, all of those things will delay your claims. So it will delay it going out, or it will delay it in processing because it will come back and say member wasn't found, or doesn't have this insurance, or it's no longer active or effective. And it can cause a whole lot of delay for you getting the money into the account in order to pay your bills, pay your payroll, and have money to make a living. It all comes down to how the patient is registered and the quality control that goes behind it. You need to explain to the staff why it's so important, because a lot of times they don't realize what they're doing affects the down process from them and how it can, delay payment, how it can cause more work for other people that have to go in and figure out what the error is and try to correct it and find the correct information. That takes time, and time is money. It's very important the staff is trained appropriately, making sure that they have the resources they need to make sure they are entering correct information, such as access to payer portals, which I did a video on that, so make sure you check that out. Making sure that the names on the insurance card matches what's in the actual system for you. So if the patient's name is James legally, but they have Jim on their insurance card, you're going to need to put their first name as Jim in your system, because that's how they're identified at the insurance company, and you want them to match. And then they'll also, match it by last name spelled correctly and date of birth and probably address. So you need to make sure those are accurate. You do still want to know that his legal name is James, so by scanning in that driver's license is important, but also maybe if it says other names or goes by putting legal name James goes by Jim or something, notating it. But these are all the little things that make a really big difference that needs to be discussed and ironed out so that you're training your staff appropriately, they know what's expected of them, and it's in your policies and procedures to back you up. If you have any more tips or tricks on how to train your front office or registration staff appropriately, please leave that in the comments below. If you want a little bit more information about this, I do have a video about training your front office staff that goes in a little bit deeper in some of these things, so check that out. Smash the thumbs up button if today's video was helpful at all, and please share these videos with colleagues or managers or people who you think will benefit, because I really want to help as many people as possible, and these are things that I see as a common routine, very repeatedly errors and issues in private practice in my experience. So I'm making videos to try to help derail that and try to nip it in the bud so that you can be successful in your new practice and not have these issues, or if you are having these issues, you know how to fix them and you can implement better policies and procedures. So take care of your guys' selves, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.